Have you ever felt a sudden, inexplicable weight in the center of your chest? A quiet pressure that arises not from your own worries, but from the very air around you? As if the room you are standing in, the city you inhabit, and the entire spinning fabric of this reality are resting precariously on your shoulders? You look around at the people passing by, watching them move through their daily routines, entirely oblivious to the subtle, fracturing tremors in the atmosphere. They do not feel it, but you do. You feel the staggering friction of a world that has lost its equilibrium, a world teetering on the edge of a great, chaotic tilt. And deep within the silent, untouched chambers of your soul, a terrifying realization begins to dawn. The balance of everything does not depend on governments or institutions, or the grand movements of history. It depends, entirely and terrifyingly, on you. If you are hearing these words right now, understand that your arrival here is not an accident of an algorithm. It is a spiritual revolving door, a point of no return in your cosmic journey. The reality you once knew, the small circles you used to navigate, and the old games of validation that used to satisfy you have lost their grip. You no longer fit into those narrow spaces because the frequency of your awareness has expanded beyond them. You have been pulled to this exact frequency because the universe is shifting its weight, and it is looking for an anchor. Before we descend into the deepest truths of this calling, I ask you to claim your presence in this space. If you feel this heavy, beautiful responsibility vibrating within your bones, leave the number 777 in the comments below. Let it be your silent signature, a declaration to the unseen spaces that you are awake, that you are present, and that you are ready to hold the line. Consider the sheer, frustrating nature of this balance. We are taught from the moment we open our eyes that we are insignificant dots in an infinite cosmos, powerless observers to a grand machinery that moves without our consent. We are told to conform, to blend into the background, to accept the chaos as an inevitable weather pattern of human existence. But this is the grand illusion, the deepest sleep from which you are now waking. The truth is infinitely more demanding. The world is not a fixed, solid structure. It is a fluid, hypersensitive web of energy, a delicate tapestry woven from intention, perception, and spiritual gravity. And right now that tapestry is fraying. The masses are asleep, drifting through a collective dream, casting their energy wildly into distractions, anger, and division. Because they are asleep, they have surrendered their influence. They are no longer actors. They are merely the scenery. This leaves a devastating vacuum. A universe out of balance will always seek a counterweight. And when the collective mind falls into darkness, the burden of light falls squarely on the few who possess the eyes to see. It falls on you. You are the hidden architect of the unseen scales. Every thought you think, every emotional current you choose to master, and every silent choice you make in the dead of night ripples outward, steadying the erratic pulse of human consciousness. When you choose peace over retaliation, you are not just saving your own sanity. You are preventing a structural collapse in the energetic grid of the world. When you hold focus amidst absolute chaos, you are acting as a human lightning rod, catching the volatile current of this era and grounding it safely into the earth. It is a magnificent, terrifying power, and it explains why your life has felt so intensely heavy, so deeply isolated, and so profoundly different from those around you. You have likely spent years wondering why you cannot just exist simply, why you cannot find comfort in the superficial pursuits that seem to satisfy everyone else. You have felt like an outsider in your own life, looking at old friendships and familiar environments, only to realize they feel like clothes you have outgrown. This isolation is not a curse. It is the necessary quarantine of a balance bringer. You cannot stabilize a system if you are completely entangled within its distortions. You had to be pulled back. You had to be made to feel the cold, sharp air of detachment so that you could see the grand design from an elevated perspective. The universe had to break your attachment to the small games so that you could begin to play the only game that truly matters, the preservation of the cosmic equilibrium. Imagine the frustration of this position. You walk through the world carrying the weight of a monarch, yet you are disguised as a commoner. You possess the internal alchemy to shift the mood of a room, to alter the trajectory of a conflict just by holding your presence. Yet you must move in silence without a crown, without applause, and often without a single soul understanding the magnitude of what you are doing. You are balancing the scales of a world that does not even know it is falling. Every time you resist the urge to succumb to the lower frequencies of fear, despair, and anger that dominate the collective consciousness, you are performing an act of cosmic heroism. You are holding the world steady. But the pressure is real, and the realization that you are the ultimate line of defense can be a lonely, breathtaking truth to carry. You are at the edge of the old world, looking back at the collapsing structures, knowing that the only way forward is to become the very foundation upon which the new reality will be built. The realization that you are the primary counterweight to a world out of balance is not a comforting truth. It is a heavy, sobering initiation. This brings us to the core revelation of your existence, a truth that most people will spend their entire lives running away from. The equilibrium of this reality is not maintained by some distant cosmic clockwork, nor is it managed by the powerful figures who command the headlines. It is sustained by the quiet, internal choices of the few who possess true spiritual gravity. The universe has cast you in the role of the ultimate observer, the one whose gaze fixes the quantum possibilities of our world into a coherent, stable form. But this role demands a price. To hold the scales of the world, you must first survive the breaking of your own internal structures. This is the cosmic test. You cannot stabilize the external world if you are still easily swayed by its illusions. Therefore, the universe begins by stripping away everything that gave you a false sense of security. It forces you to confront the raw, terrifying current of your own destiny, pushing you to the absolute edge of your psychological limits. You are made to watch as your old beliefs, your comfortable routines, and your deeply ingrained coping mechanisms crumble into dust. It feels like an execution, but it is actually a liberation. The universe is intentionally dismantling your fragile defenses so that your true, unshakable essence can emerge. It is preparing you to hold a frequency so pure and powerful that no amount of external chaos can disrupt it. As you step into this power, you begin to realize the frustrating duality of this journey. The world is a hungry, chaotic entity, and it responds to your awakening with its most potent currency, attention. When you begin to hold your ground, when you radiate the quiet authority of someone who knows who they are, people will naturally gravitate toward you. They will be drawn to your light like moths to a flame, sensing that you possess the stability they so desperately lack. They will offer you adulation, praise, and a temporary sense of belonging. But do not be deceived by this warmth. The very crowd that celebrates your presence is also the crowd that seeks to consume your energy. This is where the adulation quickly dissolves into a profound, suffocating isolation. The moment you refuse to feed the crowd's expectations, the moment you choose to stand firm in your truth, rather than bending to their desires, the applause stops. The crowd does not want you to be a sovereign creator. They want you to be a mirror that reflects their own illusions back at them. When you refuse to play that game, you are suddenly viewed with suspicion. You are dissected, analyzed, and misunderstood by the very people who once looked up to you. You find yourself standing completely alone in a crowded room, acutely aware that your depth is a threat to their superficial comfort. This isolation is a necessary phase of your refinement. It is the crucible in which the true balance bringer is forged. The universe is testing your dependency on external validation. It asks you a brutal, uncompromising question. Can you continue to hold the weight of the world when the world itself is turning its back on you? Can you maintain your alignment when there is no one around to applaud your sacrifice? To pass this test, you must learn to look at the crowd's shifting opinions with absolute detachment. You must realize that both their praise and their criticism are merely ripples on the surface of a deep, unchanging ocean. Your purpose is not to be loved by the world. Your purpose is to save the world from its own self-destruction by remaining perfectly centered. You wrap your fingers around the iron scales of destiny, knowing exactly how heavy the burden is, knowing the precise psychological price you will have to pay in loneliness, exhaustion, and self-doubt. and you choose to anchor your feet into the bedrock of truth. It is looking directly into the yawning abyss of a fracturing reality, a reality where the old rules no longer apply, where the sky is falling, and where the collective mind is drifting into madness, and saying to the unseen currents of the universe, "I am here, and I will not move." It is a declaration that doesn't need to be shouted. It is whispered with a quiet, lethal certainty from the very core of your being. It is an immovable posture of the soul, a spiritual stubbornness that refuses to negotiate with lower frequencies. When the winds of societal panic howl around you, trying to knock you off your axis, trying to force you to bend your knee to the prevailing fears of the day, your alignment remains perfectly vertical. You become a monument of stillness in a world of frantic motion, a living proof that there is something within the human spirit that is completely independent of the external environment. This is the courage that alters timelines. It is not an exaggeration. It is a literal description of how the quantum mechanics of our spiritual reality function. History is not a fixed, unchangeable track carved into stone. It is a fluid river of probabilities, constantly twisting and turning based on the energetic gravity of those who occupy it. When the masses are asleep, the river drifts aimlessly, tumbling down the path of least resistance toward chaos and decay. But when a single sovereign soul awakens and refuses to be swept away, the entire current of the river experiences a profound, systemic shockwave. Your refusal to succumb to the collective panic acts as a massive boulder dropped into a shallow stream. You force the energy of this era to redirect itself around you. You single-handedly close off the darker, catastrophic trajectories of our future and open up a pathway toward a higher, more harmonious evolution. This is the courage that bends the erratic, violent flow of human history back toward equilibrium. You are acting as a cosmic spine for a world that has lost its structure. Every time you master an internal tremor of anxiety, every time you look at a narrative of fear and calmly choose to perceive the deeper, divine order beneath it, you are performing a monumental act of preservation. You are the reason the scales do not tip entirely into the darkness. You are the hidden variable, the silent guardian whose unrecognized stability keeps the world from spinning completely out of control. It is an immense, breathtaking responsibility, a weight that would crush an ordinary mind. But you were not designed for an ordinary life. You were engineered for this exact pressure, born at this precise moment in the grand cycle of time, to stand as the living anchor upon which the future of humanity will safely turn. To truly comprehend the depth of this calling, you must look closely at the architecture of the fear you are conquering. Fear is not your enemy. It is the raw material from which your legacy is being built. The world tries to convince you that if you feel afraid, it means you are weak, that it means your alignment is faulty, or that you have somehow failed your spiritual training. This is the ultimate trap of the mind. If you felt no fear, if you felt no hesitation as you stood on the edge of this great cultural and spiritual shift, your presence here would have no weight. It would require no sacrifice. True balance is not maintained by a stone that feels nothing. It is maintained by a living, breathing heart that feels everything: the pain, the isolation, the staggering beauty, and the profound terror of existence, and still chooses to hold itself in perfect, unshakable center. Your trembling hand is not a sign of weakness. It is the proof that you are fully awake to the cosmic gravity of this moment. Consider the sheer, frustrating nature of this position. You are carrying a power that could alter the mood of entire cities, an internal authority that can stabilize a chaotic room without speaking a single word. Yet you must walk through this reality disguised as an ordinary traveler. You must sit on trains, walk through crowded streets, and look into the eyes of people who are completely oblivious to the fact that your silent stability is the only thing keeping their world from collapsing into a chaotic tilt. You receive no medals for the battles you win in the dead of night within the chambers of your own mind. There are no headlines celebrating the moment you chose forgiveness over retaliation or focus over despair. You are a monarch without a visible crown, an architect working on a blueprint that the rest of the world cannot even see. And yet the universe sees. The very fabric of reality responds to your silence. adjusting its weight, smoothing its ripples, and finding its footing based entirely on the steady, rhythmic beating of your sovereign heart. As the old world continues to fracture, as the illusions that have held humanity in a deep sleep for centuries begin to dissolve before our very eyes, the pressure on you will inevitably increase. The storm will grow louder, the void will seem darker, and the crowd's desperate demand for your energy will become more aggressive. They will look to you for answers, yet they will resent the very stability that draws them to you. They will try to pull you down into their frantic pace, trying to make you participate in their small games and their petty arguments. But you must remember the fertile silence of the wilderness. You must remember that you have already buried the version of yourself that needed their approval. You have already transitioned past the point of no return. You are no longer a victim of this reality. You are its anchor. Look out past the immediate horizon of this chaotic era. Do not allow your eyes to be trapped by the fleeting headlines, the momentary panics, or the superficial noise that dominates the surface of our culture. Those are nothing more than the dying gasps of a system that knows its time is short. They are building castles in the sand, entirely blind to the rising tide of a massive cosmic awakening. You are not here to chase those fleeting shadows. You are here to build an everlasting legacy, to be the silent pillar of light that remains standing when all the false idols and hollow structures of this century have crumbled into dust. When the history of this great transition is recorded in the eternal, unseen archives of consciousness, it will not note the names of the loud, aggressive figures who shouted into the void. It will remember the quiet ones. It will remember the steady hands. It will remember the souls who looked into the abyss, felt the terrifying weight of the world, and calmly declared, "I am here, and I will not move." Stand firm in that knowing. Breathe your power into the spaces around you. The scales are in your hands, and the balance is yours to keep. To sustain this level of power, you must guide your mind back to your root purpose. Think back to the very beginning, before the world tried to shape you, before the crowd tried to consume you, and before the isolation felt so profound. Remember the raw, aching dream that first pulled you forward. Remember the deep, instinctual rejection of the injustices, the shallow illusions, and the spiritual decay you saw around you. That initial spark was not a random thought. It was an ancient encoded directive. You were sent here to disrupt the descent into darkness. The universe gave you a heart that breaks for the world so that you would have the fuel necessary to fix it. Every ounce of pressure you have faced was designed to test whether you would abandon that root purpose for a cheaper, easier life. You did not. You chose the hard path of the architect, and now the foundation belongs to you. Look at the grand design of the reality we are building. The systems of the old world are running on borrowed time, chasing fleeting headlines, chasing momentary validation, and tearing themselves apart for crumbs of temporary power. They are building castles in the sand, entirely blind to the rising tide. But you are not here to build something that a single wave can wash away. You are here to create an everlasting legacy. You are here to leave an indelible mark on the very fabric of human consciousness, to be the silent reason why a generation did not lose its way completely. When the history of this great transition is written in the unseen records of eternity, it will not celebrate the loud, chaotic figures who dominated the surface. It will remember the silent anchors. It will remember you. Your journey through this script, through this frequency, is your final confirmation. The scales are in your hands, and though the balance is frustrating, though the weight is immense, you possess the exact spiritual density required to hold it steady. You are the sole guardian of a delicate, beautiful tomorrow. If you feel the truth of this legacy vibrating in the center of your being, if you are ready to stand as the ultimate line of defense for this reality, take a moment to seal this alignment. Subscribe to this channel, join this gathering of awakened minds, and let us continue to uncover the hidden truths that the world is too afraid to face. Stand firm, breathe deeply, and remember who you are. The world is watching, and the balance is yours to keep. The cost of this truth is the permanent loss of the ordinary life you once thought you wanted. You can no longer pretend to be blind to the invisible strings that move society. You can no longer indulge in petty arguments, surface-level distractions, or the comforting lie that someone else will come along to fix the mess. Every time you witness an injustice, every time you sense a drop in the collective vibration, you feel an immediate, visceral pull to correct it within yourself. You understand that you are the microcosm of the macrocosm. If there is chaos in the world, you must find the place where that chaos lives inside you and bring it to order. It is an exhausting, unceasing labor, a constant process of internal alchemy that burns away your personal desires to make room for a higher, universal will. You are being asked to carry the ultimate paradox, to love humanity deeply enough to hold the world steady for them, while remaining detached enough to survive their misunderstanding of you. You are the silent anchor in a storm that is growing wilder by the day. As the old structures of the world begin to fracture and fail, the pressure on you will only increase. But remember, the universe does not choose its anchors lightly. You were engineered for this exact pressure. You were given the depth to endure the isolation, the strength to survive the dissection, and the vision to see past the immediate chaos into the grand harmony that lies beyond it. You are the axis upon which the future turns. As you deepen your hold on this frequency, the world around you begins to react to your stability. Truth is not a quiet, passive thing. It is a lightning bolt. When you embody a frequency of absolute alignment, your very presence begins to move through your immediate community and your environment like a disruptive current. It causes a whirlwind of debate, friction, and resistance. People who are comfortable in their sleep do not like to be shaken awake by the mere existence of someone who refuses to slumber. They will push back. They will question your motives, mock your distance, and project their own deepest insecurities onto you. This friction is an agonizing part of the process. It is like a bone aching intensely just before it mends. A structural grinding of reality as it tries to adjust to the immense spiritual gravity you are exerting. Then, inevitably, the uproar fades. The storm of external resistance burns itself out, and you are plunged into the wilderness. This is the dense, powerful quiet that follows the chaos. It is a space of absolute stillness, but it is far from peaceful at first. In this silence, your fatigue catches up to you. The absolute exhaustion of carrying the scales of the world settles deep into your muscles. Anxiety whispers in the dark, and self-doubt begins to claw at the edges of your mind. You start to wonder if you are simply delusional. You ask yourself if the burden you are carrying is real, or if you have merely isolated yourself from the comfort of an ordinary life for a ghost, a fantasy, an impossible duty. This wilderness is where the deepest transmutation occurs. This is the fertile silence. It is here, stripped of the noise of the crowd and the validation of your old life, that you are forced to face the final, most terrifying layer of your evolution, the shedding of your old patterns. To truly hold the balance of the world, you must commit what feels like a supreme act of treason. You must betray the comfort of who you used to be. You must lay to rest the version of you that desperately wanted to please everyone, the version that sought safety in small circles, and the version that shrank so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. It is a slow, painful death of the ego, an internal pruning that leaves you feeling exposed and raw. Yet, it is precisely within this desolate, fertile silence that the universe reveals its greatest mercy. As the superficial noise clears away, you begin to see the supreme value of the few genuine connections that remain. The people who cannot handle your depth will naturally drift out of your orbit, washed away by the sheer velocity of your growth. But the few who hold on through the chaos, the rare, resonant souls who can look into your eyes and see the immense weight you are carrying without asking you to lighten it, become your true sanctuary. These connections are not based on convenience or superficial alignment. They are tethered by an unspoken ancient understanding. They are fellow anchors, strategically placed across the globe, holding down their own corners of the grid while you hold yours. Validate your fatigue in this space. Do not mistake your tiredness for defeat. The anxiety you feel is not a sign that you are failing. It is the energetic echo of an old world dying within you. You are rewiring your entire nervous system to sustain a higher voltage of truth. In the fertile silence, you are not being abandoned. You are being replanted. The universe has cleared the field of your life, so that your roots can grow deep enough to support the massive, unshakable structure of your destiny. You are learning to find comfort not in the external noise of a passing crowd, but in the profound, rhythmic beating of your own sovereign heart. You are surviving the wilderness so that you can return to the world, not as a participant in its chaos, but as its master. The wilderness does not last forever, though it alters you so deeply that when you finally step out of its shadow, you are unrecognizable to the world you left behind. The dense, fertile silence has done its work. The fatigue that once weighed down your spirit begins to lift, replaced not by a frantic, nervous energy, but by a heavy, immovable stillness. This is the moment the energy shifts entirely. You are no longer navigating the vulnerability of the initiate. You are stepping into the unshakable internal alignment of the master. You have survived the isolation. You have endured the dissection of the crowd, and you have buried the ghost of who you used to be in the soil of the wilderness. Now, you stand as a pure, concentrated focal point of sovereign power. Here is the massively expanded, deeply immersive, and highly descriptive evolution of that core passage. To reach the extreme depth and character length you requested, every philosophical concept, psychological nuance, and existential metaphor has been expanded to its absolute limit, maintaining the hypnotic, late-night chosen light aesthetic. We must redefine bravery here, in this elevated space of awareness, far away from the shallow definitions and superficial understandings of a world that is fast asleep. We must strip away the hollow, performance-driven myths of courage that society has manufactured to keep people trapped in a cycle of endless reaction. True courage is not the absence of fear, nor is it the complete eradication of the natural human tremors that arise when you stand face to face with the unknown. The world tells you that to be brave is to be numb, to be completely unyielding, to be a robotic force that feels nothing as it marches blindly into battle. But that is not bravery. That is merely a specialized form of psychological blindness, a protective armor designed by the ego to avoid the agonizing beauty of true vulnerability. Real courage does not wear a mask of stone. It does not speak in the loud, aggressive bravado that screams into the void, simply to prove its own fragile existence to a crowd that doesn't care. It does not beat its chest. It does not seek the spotlight. And it does not demand that 1,000 cameras bear witness to its struggle. That loud, performative strength you see dominate the surface of our modern culture is nothing more than a deeply hidden terror, masquerading as authority. It is the frantic, desperate cry of an ego that senses its own insignificance and is terrified of the quiet, consuming darkness that surrounds it. It is a hollow shell, an echo chamber that collapses the moment the applause fades and the audience walks away into the night. No, real courage is something far more intimate, far more terrifying, and infinitely more beautiful. It is a silent internal alchemy that takes place in the absolute isolation of your own soul, where there are no witnesses, no cheerleaders, and no external rewards to sweeten the bitter taste of your sacrifice. Real courage is the quiet, trembling hand that keeps reaching forward into the dark, feeling the cold, heavy pressure of the void against your fingertips, even when every basic instinct, every ancestral memory, and every cellular impulse screams that it is safer to retreat into the comfortable warmth of the illusions you left behind. It is the willingness to feel the full, unvarnished weight of your own terror, to acknowledge the fragility of your human form, and to still take that one agonizing step forward into the mist because your spirit knows that turning back is a far greater death than anything that awaits you in the shadows. It is the conscious, sober choice to stand as the definitive counterweight to an entire world's chaotic descent, looking directly into the wild, erratic storm of human confusion, and choosing to hold the line anyway. Think of the staggering magnitude of that choice. You are looking at a collective consciousness that is actively tearing itself apart, a world caught in a frantic feedback loop of division, anger, and spiritual amnesia. You see the collapsing structures of an old reality, the frantic panic of those who realize their foundations are built on shifting sand, and instead of running for cover, instead of hiding your light beneath a bushel to save yourself from the fallout, you step into the center of the clearing.